Okay, now we're back to lesson 5 where we're going to talk about primary chords and secondary chords. We've covered a lot about chords and intervals and keys so far. Now let's talk about primary and secondary chords. Now the importance of understand that we sort of divide the major scale chords into 2 categories, primary and secondary, help us to further understand the structure. Now remember we talk about C major, and we talk about the key is equivalent to like your home. Everything you want exists inside your home. The key, everything you need to create the song will exist in that key. The chords. So now we have to figure out what are the chords in the key, because most of the songs we play are going to involve us playing chords. And all the chords are not the same. Now I just covered the 6 basic triads. But in the structure of a major scale, you're only going to come across 3 of these chords. The major chord, the minor chord, and the diminished chord. In every major scale, you're going to come across these 3 chords. These are the 3 chords you need to focus on mostly as it relates to the major key. So if I build a chord on the 1st degree of the scale, and I'm talking about C right now, I have a major chord. If I go up to the 4th note in the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, I build another chord, I get a major chord again. Nice. If I go up to the 5th degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I build a chord, I get another major chord. These are the primary chords. In a major scale, the chord 1, chord 4, and chord 5 is what we call the primary chords. So now that we know what 3 of the chords are out of the 7, because remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th is just a repeat of the 1. So we don't worry about the 8. We worry about the other 7. So now that we know 3 of these 7, we have to figure out what the remaining 4 chords are. Now if we go to chord 2 and build a chord, that's a minor chord. Now we're talking about the quality. Remember we talked about the 6 types of chords? Those are qualities. We're only focusing on 3. Chord 2, chord 3, again, 1, 2, 3, build a chord on chord 3. And if I jump up, build a chord and chord 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 3 chords are minor chords. Chord 2, chord 3, and chord 6 are minor chords. Chord 1, chord 4, chord 5 are major chords. These major chords are primary chords, so that means chord 2, 3, and 6 are secondary chords. Now you say, what about chord 7? Now chord 7 is diminished. This is the only diminished chord in the major scale. It's also a part of the secondary chord. So we have chord 1, 4, and 5 are primary chords. Chords 2, 3, 6, and 7 are secondary chords. 1, 4, and 5 are primary chords. 2, 3, 6, and 7 are secondary chords. That's how every major scale is structured. It's very important to note that. Now you hear me start talking about chord 1, chord 6, and chord 7, chord 2, and 3, etc. I'm no longer referring to 1st degree, 2nd degree. We talk about 1st degree, 2nd degree, and 3rd degree when we're talking about a single note. So I might say this is the 3rd degree of the C major scale. This is the 5th degree of the C major scale. Once we start talking about chords, group of 3 notes, now we get to what we call the number system. And that's where we assign numbers to each chord in the key. Chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5, chord 6, chord 7. It's not complicated. Again, it's just counting from chord 1 up to chord 7. But this concept of knowing the chords as numbers gets very important later on when we start to talk about chord progressions. And you see me do stuff like, oh, I'm playing a 1, 6, 2, 5 in the key of C. 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. And all I'm doing is just playing chord 1, chord 6, chord 2, and chord 5 from the C major scale. So whenever you hear musicians throwing around numbers, just know that they're talking about the different degree of the scale, the chords that are built on the different degree of the scale. And so that's the primary chord and the secondary chords right there. Again, recap, chord 1, 4, and 5 are always major chords, and these are the primary chords. Chords 2, 3, and 6 are minor chords. These are the secondary chords. Chord 7 is the only one that is not major or minor, as it's diminished, and it's also part of the secondary chord. So we have 4 chords in the secondary chord system, 4 secondary chords, and 3 primary chords. Let that simmer for a bit, play around with that, get comfortable with the concept of the primary versus secondary. And stay tuned as we jump into lesson 6. We're going to talk about inversions and voicing.